Bang! Needs Knives. I'm Jared with my lovely wife, Kara.
Hello.
And we are live, Bang Gang members. So this is a Bang Gang members only live. And today we are going to be working on bellies because that is one of probably the most asked difficult problem for a lot of people is how to appropriately get the belly. The tip is also another area, especially when you're talking about fixed angle systems, but for freehand especially, and even fixed angle systems, the belly seems to be an issue for a lot of people, especially when you talk about knives with significant belly, right? When you got this big swoop right there. So we are going to talk about how to appropriately sharpen that freehand. And I'll talk a little bit about fixed angle system for those of you that have fixed angle system, but I don't think most of you guys have too much of an issue with the belly. It's more of the tip area with the fixed angle systems.
Hey, baby.
Yeah.
Can I have your coffee?
What's up, Lee? We got Bama Knife Guy in here. So we're going to start off getting our plate. We have a 140 grit Atoma diamond plate here. This one's pretty wore down. It's really probably about 240 to 300 at the moment because I've used it so much. But these, sorry guys, these cut like a beast. Let me turn my sound off on my phone. Give me 1 second. These cut like a beast, and Bama, I'll talk to you right after this. I see you said something about patron. Those of you that are patron members, don't forget there's a giveaway going right now, but you have to make sure when you click the link, you click over to YouTube and watch it there or comment there because I can't grab the comment from Patreon. So when you go to Patreon, there's a link to watch it on Patreon or through YouTube. There's also one in your email. At least there should be one in your email. So when you click on it, make sure you watch it on YouTube. Now, let's get started. So, like I said, I'm going to, you know what, I'll kind of take a little slower, let some more people get in here. So what we're working on is belly, right? Because bellies can be a little difficult for people because you're dragging. And I also made it to where I can move this camera around a little bit, guys. So don't worry, we're going to get some different angles, or at least closer angles. So when you're going across the stone, right? Or here, let me go towards you guys. When you're going across the stone, holding the angle and getting this belly, a lot of people are confused. Do you dip your wrist like this? Do you just lift up? Do you go across and try to go forward like this? And it can be a bit confusing. And sometimes you want a mixture because sometimes you know, depending on how the angle is and how the grind is, sometimes it's off from one side to the other. So sometimes you might want to do one of the other techniques where maybe you're going across the stone and you dip your wrist, where you're kind of going like that, and that'll kind of give you a little bit of a lower angle, maybe to match the other side. But specifically talking about how to keep the same angle through the belly all the way to the tip, let's get it. So one thing you got to understand is that, yes, baby.
Just a comment from Bama said, didn't realize how convex all my freehand edges were until I used that TSPROF and saw the true V grind.
Yes. Yeah, I've gotten really good at V ground edges freehand, but it does take a lot of effort and I want to say motor skills, but just muscle memory on holding that angle. Now, my favorite edges are a mixture, not V ground, and which V ground edges are perfectly fine. So sometimes they are my favorite, but I like a little tiny bit of convexing. So a V ground edge that has barely a little bit of convexing to it, it adds just a little bit of durability to it while also keeping that high level of sharpness. But V ground edges are great. And convex.
I just have a question. This is V grind. This is convex. V convex.
No, that's hollow. What you're doing. Convex is like this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's concave.
Convex is like this. V ground is like this. Convex, V ground, hollow.
Do you like my sign language for it?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Okay, so when you're thinking about, let me, I'm going to drop you guys down here really quick. We're going to come down here.
Don't drop them too hard. Don't hurt them. Don't hurt them now.
Watch yourself. So, one thing I want you to concentrate on is the angle. So, there's a difference here. So, we have the angle of which we're going to put it on the stone. Okay. So, the angle is how high the spine is from the stone. So, right now, it's flat on the stone, right? The angle I put it on is how high I lift it, leaving the edge on the stone. Now, changing where I'm hitting the blade, where I'm hitting whether I'm hitting the heel or the middle of the blade or the belly is going to have to do with this part. So we have angle and then where we're hitting. All right. So as you're coming across the stone, you want to keep the same angle. Even if the grind changes thickness a little bit, you still want to keep the same angle. Now, in some cases, people don't like seeing an edge bevel that changes from small to really big. And that's because the thinness behind the edge goes from thinner to thicker. So sometimes, when you get really good, you can actually stop it from, in some cases, not always, but you can make it to where even though it's a little thicker up here in the belly or thinner in the belly, the angle doesn't look like it changed, meaning the edge bevel stays just about the same size. But if the thickness behind the edge changes, so should the size of your edge bevel. So if it's thin right here and thick right here, this edge bevel, this part of the edge bevel should be bigger than this part if you're holding the right angle or the same angle. So after we have our angle, right? Once we have our angle, a little bit more. Once we have our angle, as we come, I'm trying to set it where you guys can see it. So as I come across, so I'm holding my angle, I'm coming across the stone. Now I need to hit the belly, right? So now I need to lift in order to hit the belly, but not change angle. I need to hold that same angle. So as I go through to the belly, I'm just raising my elbow, not changing my wrist, just my elbow all the way to the tip. And then when you get to the tip, you can kind of use your thumb and push it into the tip. But sometimes you have to raise it up a little higher than it feels like you're going to have to. Yes, baby.
When you're done. Because it's off topic. It's still sharpening, but different topic.
So, again, start at the heel. Start at the heel. That's where you need to find your angle, is right here at the heel. As you're going across the stone, hold that angle by locking your wrist and lift your elbow to go through the belly. Now, sometimes what might help you is by angling, instead of going like this and going across and lifting. You can do it like that, that's fine. But sometimes it helps to, instead of going like this, kink it this way a little bit. Because as you're going across, you can kind of push it. And then when you get to the belly, you kind of pushing the belly through, if that makes sense. Making it to where it's a little bit of an easier motion. When if you're going to the side like this, you might not be, you don't really have the control you do if you just, instead of going this way, go like this, pushing through. Yes, baby.
This one is related. Zachariah said, do you flip your stone every so many strokes?
No. Depends on your stone. If you're really, you just want to make sure like you don't use just one part of the stone. I don't do that. No. I'm gonna just sharpen however I want right now, and then next time I might flip to the other side. I can feel where parts are a little bit more aggressive. And when I need to work on the tip or something, I'll go to the most aggressive part. This is how your stone is going to break in, just like this. That's going to be the most used area on both sides.
It.
Just like that. So the least used area is always going to be this triangle right here. Those two areas. Oop. Sorry. Go back up. If you guys can see that. This is going to be the least used area. This and then this.
Because that's where you go at the tip and so you come off.
This is going to be, well, this is where when you're going across the stone.
Your tip.
You're using this part of the stone.
Right.
You don't really use this triangle right here. So this area and this area is the least used.
Should you scoot your knife over on the tip to use it so that it's like more?
No, you just, when you're working on certain things, you go to that area. When you need a stone, part of the stone that's more aggressive, like the tip or something, you go to that area. Or if you have a part that you need to grind down really quick, use that area.
Really quick, I have I'm simultaneously answering messages and emails right now, and I have an email that's a question specifically about sharpening, to which I will answer this person, but I figured maybe when you're kind of done with this topic that you could answer it, because it's a good question for everyone to hear the answer to.
Okay. We'll do that in just a minute.
Yeah.
So take note. All right, so, again, when you're doing the belly, you first have to concentrate on the angle. Getting the blade across the stone, holding that angle. So back and forth, but I'm not hitting the belly right now. Now I need to be able to go to holding that same angle back and forth and be able to lift my elbow. Lift my elbow. Lift my elbow. I'm holding the same angle. Doesn't matter if I'm going straight across. Lift my elbow. And after you set your edge bevel, it'll be a lot easier because it's kind of like being on a track. The edge bevel will be flat or flatter. So it'll create basically like a groove for you to feel in order to hold. If you guys know what I mean, because you have the edge bevel and it's flat and it's laying on the stone. So as you're going across, you can kind of feel. Then you'll feel if you go off a little bit. Now, those feelings do take time to understand because they're very, 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 very subtle. Now,
baby,
yes.
What kind of Miguron is that?
This is the newest Miguron. I did a first impressions on it. I cannot remember the name of it, but I recently did a first impressions on it. If you just go through my videos, you'll see it. I did it like 2 weeks ago. It has a couple.
Degros?
I don't remember.
I thought it did start with a D.
You can go and look it
up.
I'll look it up. I'll just go to Miguron side. So, it had a couple issues like the inlays kind of coming up, which I can easily fix. But other than that, I mean, it's a great knife, man. This is a super solid knife. Very comfortable in the hand. Great action. The one thing, though, is just there's a couple little voids in the carbon fiber, and the inlay is kind of coming up. But I could take the clip off, pop that off, and re-glue it on in 2 minutes.
Centurion? Is that the Centurion?
No, that's not the Centurion, no.
Looks so similar.
I know, but it's not.
Oh, wait, yeah, that one has a hole.
Okay, so, now, going the other way. Right? Going the other way. Don't concentrate on all these lines on my stone now, but you want to match the angle, right? So we can talk about matching angles another day, but you want to match your angle. Once you have the angle matched, same thing. You want to be able to go back and forth, back and forth. You can use this finger either behind the stone to hold the exact angle. And what I do is I take the spine of the knife. So concentrate really hard on what I'm about to say, guys. I take the spine of the knife, and I have a location on my finger, the exact location I want that spine to hit. I dent it on my finger, so I push it on there, and now I have a mark on my finger, right? So then I can literally mark it if I want to. So now it's marked on my finger. Dromos. So then, you sure?
Yeah.
So then
I knew it started with a D.
I can take and place the exact part of the knife. I'll also put an indicator on my knife right there. See how I put that little line? That's where my finger is going to go. So now I can put the angle on there, match up this line with this line and hit the edge exactly where I want. And if I do stop, I can go right back to it, right? Because that's the same angle. So I don't have to worry about losing my angle or stopping or anything like that. The one thing, though, is the stone will tear your finger up. So you got to be very delicate of how much pressure you allow your finger to touch the stone. Don't push down hard. First of all, you shouldn't be using a ton of pressure on sharpening, because all that'll do is mess your angle up. So use light pressure. Let the diamonds do the work. If you need to really grind down some steel really quick, yes, you can add some pressure, but it's going to be at the detriment of your angle. So when you're not worried about hogging off metal and you want your edge bevel to be nice and perfect, don't use a lot of pressure. Yes.
Bama says, what do you say? Belly pulling toward me is the most difficult side for me.
Okay. So let's talk about that.
Can I just say one other thing
Go ahead.
Just because I like the comment. Raingird1 says, been working from home since COVID. Every 20 minutes I take a few swipes on a Spyderco Finestone and clean using a white pencil eraser. Using Jared's technique is fantastic. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so thank you. That's nice. And then belly pulling toward me is most difficult.
The reason why the belly pulling towards you is the most difficult is because of this exact reason. So when you're going across the stone this way, you are doing it in one specific way. You're either doing what I'm doing right here, locking the wrist, putting the heel on the stone, going across and lifting your elbow, or you're using your wrist as the lift. Right, because right now I can go across the stone and angle like that. I can go across the stone and go like this. There's so many different ways to go across the stone and get the belly. There's actually three different ways, but make it the exact same way. So in this case, since I'm pushing, I'm locking my wrist. I'm not using my wrist to get the belly at all. I'm using my elbow. So I'm locking my wrist. I'm going across the stone, and in order to get the belly, I'm just lifting my elbow. That's it. Locking my wrist, lifting my elbow until I can see the tip is getting hit. I can literally push it into it if I want to. Now, when I switch to this side, I need to do the exact same motion. Now, the problem is that holding your wrist this way locked and this way locked is different, right? Because this way, I'm nice and flat, nice and stable. I'm in the punching motion. And this way, I'm in the pulling motion. So what you need to do is make sure, as long as your angle is set, get your angle set and lock your wrist the same way. Lock the wrist and make sure you're not letting your wrist go like this. You don't want any rotation in that muscle right there. None of that. Leave that out. Lock that in place. Then as you're coming across the stone, you're going to make sure this stays locked. Try not to allow it to go like this or like this. And then as you're coming across, only the elbow is going to move in the air, not my wrist at all. So as you're coming across, oh yeah, and also make sure you're not doing it this way. Make sure you're at an angle, right? If you guys can see what I'm doing, I'm not like this. I'm like this. So when I'm coming across, I'm going to just lift my elbow to get the belly. Now, the problem is that in order to do that, your wrist can kind of compromise because it's different the way the angle goes. So try to just use your elbow. Now, you can also do it this way because that way it's a little difficult to do that because, like I said, you're in a different position. When you're pushing, it's easy to do. When you're pulling, it's a little more difficult. So another way what you can do is if you want to use a little bit of wrist, keep the angle right here. And as you're coming across, you're kind of like, think about the edge like a track. And you're going to hold that track on the flat of the stone. And as you're coming across, just kind of, it's a lifting motion still, the same lifting motion, but you're kind of going to let, how can I say it? You're going to let it go this way instead of this way. I know that's very subtle, but like this instead of like this. Okay, because if I can go like this, but I need to make sure that I'm barely letting my wrist fold, because your wrist is going to have to fold a little bit in order for you to get close to yourself, but lock it as much as possible. If you're going to let your wrist involved, then hold it this way and go upward. So what the difference is, I'm going like this versus like this. So instead of like this, I'm going like this. It's hard to see what I'm doing right now, the difference. So I'm going to do it without holding the knife. Just watch the knife right now. So instead of going like this, I'm letting it go like this. Hopefully that makes sense. But getting that same exact motion from pulling to pushing is what you're trying to do. Take away all the nuances. Take away all the differences between your motion, because you're already doing two different motions between pushing and pulling. So since they're already different, you need to take out the other differences that you're forcing. And if you can do that, you can match that same angle and get that same edge bevel. And now I'm going to show you a little trick really quick, because you're going to mess up. I mess up, so everybody's going to mess up, right? So how do you fix it, right? If you have a bigger edge bevel going on this side than on this side, what are some little tricks? Well, since we're talking about locking our wrists and using our elbow, knowing how to dip your wrist when you need it is important. And you're going to have to eventually do this, right? It's just going to be a thing. So what it's going to be is when you're coming across the stone, like say if my edge bevel is smaller on this side right now, right? And on this side, it's bigger and it's dramatic, right? If it's only a little bit, just work on the other side a little bit longer, but it's dramatic and you can tell like, okay, this is pretty serious. I need to do something here. If the edge bevel's smaller on this side, what I need to do is as I'm coming across the stone, now I want to still lift my elbow, but with it's so subtle. So when I say these motions, remember, they're tiny, tiny, tiny. If you can feel that you're doing it, then you're probably doing it too much. You need to barely be able to feel. You almost need to just like kind of think about doing it more than actually like doing it, because just the thought of doing it makes you do it subtly, right? So as you're coming across a stone, you're gonna watch my wrist right now. Dip your wrist. I'm being dramatic right now with it so you guys can see. So I'm just dipping, dipping, dipping. But it's really, what it really looks like is this. It's so little. So that little bit is going to change degrees in the angle. So like right there, I'm doing it. And then if you really want to, like if it's really dramatic, as you're going across, you can dip your wrist under like this. Like this. So instead of doing it like this, I'm going to dip my wrist under. Can you guys see the difference in that? I'm dipping my wrist under like this instead of like this. But remember, that is when it's dramatic, right? Hopefully you don't get to that point, but you're gonna sometimes. And when you do, that will give you, because when I'm dipping like this, I'm lowering my angle. So the edge bevel on this side, we're making it seem right now, we're pretending that this side is bigger. So that means if this side's bigger, my angle is lower. The bigger the edge bevel, the lower the angle. So that means on this side, I need to match it somehow. Yes, baby.
Bama says, I just want to say, even for a seasoned freehand sharpener like myself, this is awesome info, bro. And then,
Thank you.
And then Antimatter said, I did that once, worked too long on one side of the knife. Then when I flipped, the other bevel was almost gone, so I learned to always check.
Yeah, also, though, when you wind up working, because when you reprofile, there's going to be times where you're going to spend not too long, but so long that your edge bevel's huge on one side and tiny on the other side, that's perfectly fine. It's just when you finish the side that's bigger, right? When you finish that side that all of it's done, when you go to the other side, just make sure you work on that side just as long in order to match it up. Because what you're doing is you are creating a low angle. Remember, the lower the angle, the longer it takes. The lower the angle, the harder it is. The lower, not hard like as in, harder as in time. The lower the angle, the more effort, the more longer, the everything. Because this is something very important, and I think we should talk about it right now, really quick. Give me a piece of paper, baby.
Okay.
Because this is something that I think some people, especially when they first start, they don't realize 100%. So you have your edge bevel, or let's say like this.
How?
Obviously, the edge bevel is dramatic here, but this is the edge bevel, right? This is what we're sharpening. This is the tip. Here's the choil, right? When you sharpen, you want to sharpen from the top of the edge bevel down to the apex.
That was a really pretty picture.
That is, thank you, baby.
It looks good.
That is extremely important. You don't start at the apex and work your way up. Why? Why don't you do that? Well, because when you start at the apex, that means you are putting a lower angle than what's on there. Now, like, let's say you already reprofiled it and you messed up and you put a 10-degree angle on there and you want to bring it back down, or back up, I should say, back up to a higher angle from 10 degrees to 20 degrees. Then yes, then you'd want to. But 98% of the time, you're trying to drop your angle a little bit because most edges come with a high angle, and you want to put a lower angle on it. They come with a tiny edge bevel, and you want to put a bigger edge bevel on it. Now, if it's already the angle you want to go at, right, say 15 degrees. Let's say this is a spider co right now. Here, let's say this is a damn spider co right now, and we want this, and it's already 15 degrees per side, and we want to keep it 15 degrees per side. Then we want to start at the top of the edge bevel. So when we put our first scratches on the stone, when we go like this across the stone a couple times and we see it, we want to see the scratches up here at the top. Right here. This is where we want our scratches. And then as we continue sharpening, those scratches are going to get closer and closer and closer to the edge bevel, or to the apex. So every pass, or every few passes, it's going to get closer and closer to the apex. The apex is what you cut yourself with, right? The very, very tip of the edge, the sharpest point. And as we continue to, like right now, this would be us working on it a little bit, but we still have not hit the tip of the edge. So you continue to hold your angle, continue to keep doing passes. And the more passes you do, and the better you are holding your angle, it'll continue to work its way down until it finally hits the tip of the edge, or the apex, which is when you have a burr. So you got to continue to work on it until this scratch pattern gets down to the apex and gives you a burr.
I have a scratch pattern.
What?
Look at that.
Why are you scratching yourself?
I fell in a hole yesterday.
Oh, yeah. You're falling in holes.
I was walking along a pond edge, and I think maybe a beaver made a hole under me or something because the ground caved in, and I fell in like a 6-foot hole of water. It was an exaggeration. It was about 3.5 feet. But I have a scratch pattern on my leg now.
So now, another way, if you don't want to do the finger behind the spine trick, because I know you don't want to tear your fingers up, right? You can take your fingers and place them in front, like this, right? But you want to not be used to, but it does take a little bit of time, but kind of remember where you're laying the edge on the stone, and you'll after a while you'll get used to just bam, just putting it on there and it just being normal.
Like muscle memory?
Yeah, muscle memory, but also where you're comfortable.
Now, does that happen with every knife for you, no matter what the existing angle is on the knife, or yes, it doesn't matter because you know what angle you're going to put it at?
Well, I'm going to put an angle on there that I already know is lower than the edge that's on there.
Right.
Unless if I want to match it, but if I want to put my own angle on there, I'm going to just hold it naturally at the angle I feel comfortable with holding, right? Now, if I want a specific angle on there, that's different. But you don't worry so much about what angle you're putting on there. Worry more about holding the angle. Like, most likely, when you resharpen, your angle is going to either match or be lower than the angle that's already on the knife, which is fine. So can you hold it? Can you hold that angle? Because it doesn't matter if I want to put a 10-degree angle. If it's impossible for me to hold the damn knife this low on the stone and go across the stone 1,000 times, right? Doesn't matter because I'm just going to make my edge all wonky trying to get that angle. So being able to hold the angle that you're comfortable with on the stone, you're going to get a good edge as long as you can hold it and continue that angle over and over and over and over, and then match it on the other side. Of course, you want to hold it to where you're not holding it too high. So if the angle happens to be like this high, you know, where it's so high, when you go across the stone, you're not hitting the back of the, remember we were talking about, you want to make sure you start by hitting the back of the edge bevel. If you are holding the angle and you put a couple scratches on it and you're way down here with your scratches, yes, try to drop it. But that's how you can really identify what angle you're going to put on the stone too, is by your scratch pattern. Are you scratching the apex or are you scratching the back of the edge bevel? If you start by scratching the back of the edge bevel, then you're pretty good. Don't start by scratching the tip, of the edge, the apex. You want your scratches to start at the back of the edge bevel, not the apex. And as long as they're scratching that, then you got a good angle there, and make sure you can hold it comfortably across the stone.
Call Your Chaos says hello.
What's up? And with the tips of your fingers, holding it, pulling towards you, you're kind of using them a little bit as a guide. Just a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. So most of the angle is going to be held with your wrist. Get your angle. And we'll also talk about shadow here in a second, because that's another good way to see. But when your wrist is locked in and you have the angle that you're pretty secure with, right, then you can take these fingers and you can lightly press them on the stone. Lightly. You're not putting pressure at all. You're just letting them touch. It's just a balancing thing. Because you're also letting the pad of your finger somewhat touch the stone while also touch the blade at the same time. And that's going to give you a little bit of memory of how that feels. And you're not dragging your fingers too much across stone. You're just barely letting them kind of glide across the stone. But the point is that by touching it, I can feel right now that this is about the same angle I was just holding. Because I can feel the angle of the knife underneath the pad of my finger. But I'm not putting pressure here. It's just a balancing thing. And if you guys look really quick, you guys want to see the difference in the edge bevel really quick. Hopefully we can see this on camera. And remember, I've been messing around and stuff. So, You'd think my edge bevel would be all wonky, but I've gotten really good at holding an angle.
What's up, Bearded Doom?
Come on. Now, look at how much smaller the other side is, because we didn't work on it as long. See how much smaller that is compared to this side? I know this is harder to see. Let me just go like this. I don't want to spend too much time sitting there looking at it because that camera get wonky staring at it. So now I would go to this side and I need to work on this side enough. Technically, I don't have a burr all the way across the... So technically, I should keep working on this side because I'm missing a burr right here. I have a burr from here to the tip. But technically, I would have a lot of work to do on this side. So this is the side I should work on to increase my edge bevel size. Now, sometimes I use my thumb the same way I was talking about from behind the spine right here. I do the same thing with my thumb, and I just use my thumb as the measuring guide. Now, right now, I'm not doing that. I'm just letting my thumb kind of be a balancing guide. Now, yes, I am using it slightly as an indicator of my angle, a little bit, but most of my angle is being held by my wrist. And I'm just kind of, I can feel the gap behind the spine, and I can tell it's about the same as the other side. But I'm not dragging it across the stone right now. It's barely touching it every so often. But take out as much motion as you can in your wrist. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of fluctuation, of course. But take out as much as you possibly can. If you can go across the stone without ever moving your wrist, do it. But of course, there's going to be little times where you're going to have to give it a little bit of a wrist flick or whatever. But try to take as much as you can out, because that's going to be the movements in your angle with every pass, right? If you can hold the same angle and repeat it. Now, if you're trying to find an angle, another way you can kind of find an angle is by looking at the shadow underneath the edge. It'll be underneath the very tip of the edge. Like right now, there's a shadow under there. It's going less and less. Now, if you were here with me, you'd be able to see there's still a shadow under there. And then you just lift the spine up until the shadow goes away completely. And that means, and I'm looking at the heel, not up here at the belly. I'm looking at the heel of the blade. So we see a shadow. We're lifting. And about right there, it's gone. From there, that's a low angle. I can, if I go lower now, so if I drop it back down this way, that's going to be a very low angle. Yes, it'll be incredibly sharp, and it'll take me a long time to sharpen it, so I might want a little bit of a higher angle. So anything from the point the shadow goes away and up would be a high angle. Everything from where the shadow goes away and down would be a low angle. Hopefully that made sense. Yes.
Raingird1 says, do you find the bevel on factory edges tend to be concave due to grinding wheel or belt geometry?
I think some of them are, a lot of them are V-grinds because they're using a belt, but it's a very tight belt. So most of them are V-grinds, but some of them, they have a little bit of convexing. What?
We need to ban Bama from this stream. Listen to this terrible joke. Are you ready?
Okay.
This is awful.
Okay.
I have a knife that I've named Bill. When I sharpen it and get a burr, I call it Bill's burr.
Oh, Bill Burr.
Like the motherfucking comedian.
I get it.
You just leave, Bama. Just go.
But before you go, we're going to talk about a little bit of a slider belly, because big bellies can be difficult for people to sharpen, right? I would say with big belly knives, if you're a beginner, you probably shouldn't be working on that. You should probably work on something with a smaller belly. Get used to a smaller belly. Then start working on a bigger belly, which is going to be more beneficial to you anyways, because big bellies for everyday carry aren't really that good. It's good for hunting. It's good for hunting, good for skinning, things like that. But for EDC, cutting straps, ropes, cardboard, plastic, tape, things like that, not that good.
I'm completely anti-belly when it comes to my EDC, or even for the particular work I was doing. It's like, I don't want a belly at all. I say it all the time, downward facing tip, and I prefer almost a completely straight utility edge. That's also why I really like Wharncliffes, because they provide that same thing.
Yeah. Lots of utility.
Different kind of tip. I think the utility blade gets you a better, like, tiny tip for getting in stuff, but the Wharncliffe, I just like the look of.
So this is going to be similar to like a chef knife. It's a drop point blade, but this is a very, very functional blade shape. You have a little bit of belly, lots of flat area for push cutting, and the tip works great. This is a phenomenal knife. $40 for this knife. That's it. This is a KUBEY Nova. D2, I saw some of them come in AUS-10, but D2, they also have a titanium frame lock model. G10, steel liners with a reversible deep carry clip. T8 screws all the way around. I think it's a T10 pivot. Really good piece right here. So if you want a good EDC knife that's full size, I got a link down in the description. This thing is badass. The action is a flipper action. The flipper tab is super duper comfortable. Great flipping action. Anyways, yeah. And the geometry is really good. Nice and thin behind the edge. Yes, baby.
Antimatter says, did you ever sharpen VENEV super clean?
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts on it and best grit?
So, I think it depends on the heat treat, but if it's heat treated well, it'll do good at just about every grit. I tend to keep mine. I have two knives in VENEV, and I have one that I've polished a few times, but I tend to like it around medium to high, so between like 600 to 1200 grit. I have taken it to a polish, and it did fine. It did feel like it got slick pretty quick. Remember, VENEV is a steel I have not dealt with a lot. Sharpened it, I don't know, a dozen times, probably under a dozen times. So it's not something like I've done 100 times or anything. But I would say it does have the ability to be good with a polish. However, it feels that it might lose its bite sometimes a little faster than maybe you'd like. Not saying it's not still good and it's not still fine, but if it loses its bite faster than you'd like, then I would just lower the grit down to a lower grit, or lower your angle, because the angle is the most important part to everything. Your bite, your edge retention, your cutting performance, all of that is dependent on your angle. So if you have a nice low angle, regardless what the steel is, you're going to increase the bite. But yeah, it's a great steel. I do like the steel a lot. I think I can't prove this or anything, but I think it's easy to burn from the factory. I can't say that for sure, but I have the feeling, because it seems like every factory edge on VENEV it seems like it's burnt. So it might be a steel that's kind of easy for them to burn. I'm not positive on that. I obviously can't prove that, but I just have that feeling. So this knife right here, the KUBEY Nova, we're gonna go across the stone a few times with this, because this, I think, is a great blade shape to learn on for learning how to get belly, because it's very subtle, and this is a very, very easy blade shape to learn how to sharpen on. One of the easiest, in my opinion. Spear points are probably the easiest, but drop points are also really good because it's similar to a chef knife. So as you're going across the stone, you can place your elbow forward of the... Let me back you guys up a little bit. So place your elbow forward of the stone. So if you guys look, I'm just going to naturally do this really quick, but I want you to kind of pay attention to my arm. My arm is in front of the stone. not like this, but you know, at an angle, but towards you guys. Then I start with the heel of the blade, the heel towards the choil. Let my angle hit the stone. So now I'm holding my angle. And as I'm coming across the stone, the heel's going forward. And I'm going to lift my elbow this direction like this. And I can use my body a little bit. See that? Now, if I want to, I can continue going like this. And now all I'm doing is using my back. I'm not even barely using my elbow or my wrist. I'm kind of just flowing right now. You can sharpen like that. It works really good. I notice Outdoors 55 sharpens like this. And you're basically just using your body to sharpen. Right now I'm just using my back. You guys see how I'm just kind of flowing? I'm barely moving my wrist at all, if at all. Now, if I don't want to do it like that, right? I don't want to do the flow. I want to just use my elbow. Same exact motion. Everything's going to be the same. The only difference is now I'm going to use my arms. And I'm going to pull this way and push with the thumb. Light pressure with the thumb. Pulling with my elbow this way and barely pushing with my thumb this way, because once I start lifting my elbow, now I need to get this tip. So I need to push into the stone. And come back. Push into the stone. I'm locking my wrist. I'm only using my elbow for the motion. Wow, I'm surprised I matched that since I did the motion first. Wow. Huh. And I got a burr all the way across. A little bit at the heel could be worked on, but barely. Now, when you do the pull motion, you can do the same thing. Use your body. You're just going to use your body. You can do that. I'm saying this is another way, because there's lots of ways to skin a cat. You got to find what works best for you. I've tried everything, and there's sometimes, guys, sometimes, even though I'm the best at one way, sometimes I grab a knife and I'm better with that knife, with that steel, with that angle, another way. You know, like say the body movement way. And I just happen to catch a good flow. So I'm letting my body move. So my elbow's obviously back behind the stone now. I got the angle. And as I'm coming across, I'm going to lift my elbow still, but I'm using the momentum of my body to pull it through. I'm just using my elbow to lift. And I do have to kind of dip my wrist a little tiny bit to get the tip, not much. Now, if you don't want to do the body motion, obviously, just like we were talking about with the other knife, start with the heel of the blade towards you, keep it at an angle, and as you're coming across the stone, use your elbow to lift. The thing is you're not going to have to lift much. That's why this is going to be even better and easier. You're not going to have to lift up like this to get to the tip. You're going to be able to just barely lift your elbow to get to the tip. So it's going to be so much easier. You're not going to have to barely move your wrist at all. You can basically get it with almost no fluctuation of the wrist. Is that how you say that? Fluctuation?
Yeah.
Fluctuation of the
Fluctuation.
wrist? Sometimes you say words and it's like, is that even a word? Did I just make that up? Got more time on the stone. What's cool about the back and forth motion is you can get it done twice as fast. And there's no problem with going back and forth. The only problem there is whether or not you can hold the angle. Some people find it easier to hold an angle if they're going back and forth. Yes, baby.
You have two questions, okay?
Yep.
Sort of a question. Okay, Bama said there's times I get in a groove and can get hair splitting edges so easy over and over, and then other times I hit a rut where my freehand edges suck for a while. Does that ever happen to you?
Yes, and you know what it is? It's stress, and that's why I always say, when you sit down to sharpen, do it passionately. Do it in a way to where there's no time, right? You don't have a time limit. You're not in a rush. You don't have to be nowhere in an hour. You're literally have no thought in the world but to enjoy this sharpening. Because, like, if you want to take a break for a second, take a break for a second. If you want to listen to music or watch a show while you're doing it, do it. But be comfortable, like be stress free. Don't let, because what'll happen is your brain will go to all these places at the same time, and then you're not concentrating on the movement of your wrist and elbow. You're not concentrating on the pressure. You're not concentrating on all those little details that you would appreciate at the end of the sharpening that you did. And the more you mess up, the more frustrated you get. The more frustrated you get, the more you mess up. So clear that shit out. There's nothing gonna frustrate you. You gotta have that mindset. Like I'm just gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna take my time. I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to enjoy it. Because yes, absolutely, there are times I sit down and I will be about 20 minutes in, and I'll set the knife down and say, I'm not doing this. I'm done. And the reason why, and there's times I'll literally take a week off and say, I can't sharpen this week. I cannot do it. I'll ruin the knife, or I won't put my best effort into it, and I don't want that on a knife. So there's just times, man, yeah, because it does take mental effort. It really does. But the more mental effort you put in and the more muscle memory you get, in the future, the less, mental effort, but it still does take that, right? So if you guys listen to grinders, knife grinders, custom knife makers and stuff, they'll even talk about this. When they grind the blades, they have to be in the mode. If they're not in the mode, if they're stressed out, if they have stress that day, or they're fighting with their old lady or whatever, they will not put that knife on the grinder, because no matter what, they'll mess up. It takes the level of patience, and not even just patience, but just happiness and enjoyment. And you have to be in that flow. Yes, baby.
Your next question is from Dennis. Jared, I have a kitchen knife in for sharpening. It's very dull. What angle and grit would you recommend?
What kind of kitchen knife is it?
What kind of kitchen knife is it? Okay, while he's answering that, you can answer the next one.
I mean, is it like a chef knife? Is it like a chopper? Is it a paring knife? What kind of kitchen knife is it? If it's a chef knife, I would say because the thing is sometimes you got to understand what the person's doing with it. If they're cutting on top, like being negligent with it, like if they're using their chef knife for chopping bones and doing stuff that you probably shouldn't do with a regular chef knife that you should be cutting meats, fruits, and vegetables with. If you're doing it on bones and things like that, then you're not going to want a low angle, because you want a little bit more toughness, about 20 degrees per side, if that's the case. If that's not the case, and they're very cognitive of what they're using that knife for, they're literally using the chef knife for fruits, vegetables, and meat without bones, then 17 degrees, 15 degrees, a nice low angle, that will increase the sharpness. But also the steel matters too. What steel is it? If it's a tougher steel, if it's like 14C28N, you can go with a low angle. If it's not a tough steel, then go with 17 to 20 degrees, because you need edge stability, especially with super low angles with something that's really thin behind the edge. So the thinness behind the edge matters, the steel matters, and what they're doing with it. Go ahead, baby.
Okay, he said it's kind of a smaller all-around knife. It's kind of a smaller all-around knives blade is like a sheep's foot. Steel is 1.4116. It's German steel.
Yeah, just do it at between 17 and 20 degrees. You can go down to 15 degrees if you're comfortable with him not hitting bone, like hitting hard things with it and hitting ceramic and things like that. If he knows how to use a chef knife, then you can go with the super low angle. Just remember, the super low angles are the angles that are going to be more likely to chip, more likely to roll, more likely to get microchipping and things like that if he is hitting bones, ceramic, things like that.
You have another question from Mick. How do you know you have the right angle?
So I technically know my thumb, so you can get, if you want, guys. I'm going to grab something real quick. If you guys are really worried about it, go on to Amazon and buy some of these. If you want, we can link them down in the description. You can just set it right on the stone. That is a 23-degree angle right there. So that's a 23-degree angle. Well, I know mine is about 17 degrees right now because I know the center of my thumb is 17 degrees because I've measured this. So if I go like this and I set this right about the center of my thumb, my nail, then I know I'm right there about 17 degrees. So anything lower than that, if I go a little bit lower, it's going to be 15 degrees. If I go higher than that, it's going to be about 20 degrees. So that's how I range it for freehand. But I also know my natural holding is around a certain angle. So you have to figure that out for you. Because I've gotten in the habit of holding around 17 degrees. But if you are not in that habit yet, you can get some of these. These are really good. Or you can measure it, and if you have some of these, you can also measure it, because if you know this angle is 23 degrees, everything below it is lower, right? So it's under 23 degrees. And if you only go a little tiny bit, that's 20 degrees, a little bit more. Obviously, you got to kind of understand angles to some extent, but the more you do it, the more you'll understand angles. Yes.
Antimatter says, what grit do you start with just to touch up a dull user knife? I'm thinking you don't need to go low on the grit. I want to know what you do.
You need a low grit. Because if you're so it depends on what you mean by touching up. So if it's dull, you need a full sharpening. So you just need to start with a low grit and sharpen it. If you're talking about something that it's not dull, it's still sharp, because touching up is not when you hit dull. When you hit dull, you need to resharpen. Touching up is for when it's on its way to going dull, right? So in that case, then yeah, you can use a ceramic rod. You can use a ceramic rod, and you can use any type of what's it called? A ceramic plate. You can use any type of high grit, 1,000 grit, something like that. Because all you're doing is you're only doing a couple passes. And if you can't do it in a couple passes per side, then you need to resharpen, because you're not spending a bunch of time on the stone. You're literally just touching up the apex. That's all you're doing. And by touching up the apex, it should only take a couple passes. Now, stropping, obviously, you strop. But if it gets past to the point to where a ceramic rod or a ceramic plate is not going to touch it up with a couple passes, and a strop is not going to touch it up with 10 passes per side, then you need to just go down to a low grit and resharpen. And the more you keep up with stropping, the better. And also honing. Honing is just like this. Like if I take, this is a 5,000 grit stone right here. If I take, and my edge is still pretty sharp. It's not as keen as I'd like it to be. But I can feel there's a couple little micro burrs right there, something from me using it. I'll take and I'll literally just go couple passes per side, very delicately. And I mean very delicately. And all I'm doing is I'm cleaning up the micro burrs that are hanging from the edge. Maybe the edge is a little bit misaligned a little bit, and I'm straightening it up. Maybe there's a little tiny roll in my edge right there, and I need to straighten it up. Now, the rod is going to be, say if I have an edge that's rolled right here, but otherwise all the rest of the edge is good, well, then I can use the rod to straighten it up, and I'm kind of creating a micro bevel. So you're not holding it at a low angle. You're going to use it at a higher angle with just only 2 fingers, very, very delicately. Let the tip of the apex go across the stone. And what it's doing is it's creating a little micro bevel across the stone, across the edge, making a clean apex at the very apex of your edge, right? So it's a micro bevel going across the very tip of your edge, which is going to make it to where you can continue to use that knife for longer until you're ready to sharpen it. But when you start needing to hone, it's not going to be very much longer before you're going to need to resharpen. Yes, baby.
Ding, ding, ding! Richard Meador says, I've been carrying a mini Adamas in crew wear, and it's pretty thick behind the edge.
Yes,
so what edge degree would you use?
I personally, I've sharpened a few of them. I've sharpened most of them at 15 degrees per side, but I'll tell you what, man, that made a big edge bevel. So if you like a nice big edge, go 15. If you don't want a big giant edge bevel, then you can go 17 degrees. But yeah, it's thick. So, and because of the steel it'll be just fine at a low angle. Yeah.
I have a personal question. Who's the other sharpener? Not Mike Emler. Is it Blades and Fates?
Blades and Fates.
Okay.
You sharpened up.
Sorry, that was totally unrelated. I just need to know that.
But yeah, the Adamas though, it's a super tough knife. So I think you just need to understand like that if you're gonna be as tough as that knife is on itself, then you want to keep it at 17 degrees or higher. If you're planning on it just being a good user for you, slicing stuff, and you want cutting performance and sharpness and all of that, then you want a lower angle. But you're going to have a big edge bevel, which I personally like. So it just depends on what you prefer. But 17 degrees is still going to be a nice big edge bevel on it. It's not going to be too big, but it'll be a nice big edge bevel, and it'll have a high level of sharpness without sacrificing too much toughness. At 15 degrees, you are going to sacrifice some toughness. It'll still be good, though. Just not super tough. So if you notice, though, when I'm going across this, I barely have to lift up to get that to get to the tip or to go through the belly. Not much here, and it's a good angle to where I can do back and forth strokes using my body and my arms. Once you get used to doing both of them, you can start incorporating them together using a little bit of arm, a little bit of your body in the movement, as long as you're able to hold that angle, which is going to be the most difficult part for most people. So focus on getting muscle memory. It's like riding a bike, you know. No 3-year-old jumped on a bike and just started riding wheelies, right? So start focusing on keeping that angle across the stone, attention to detail. If you once, and listen, I've had to do this literally 100 times. I'm not exaggerating at all. Where I was great at holding an angle, and I would jump on the stone, and I'd get great edges, and then all of a sudden, it was like, I can't hold my angles anymore. And I literally had to go back to the basics. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I've done this literally 100 times. And I literally start back at the basics, and I start concentrating on holding my angle, focusing on every movement, and I stop rushing it. And that's going to happen to everyone. I said this a bunch of times that when I thought I was at the peak of the knowledge of knowing how to sharpen, I was only at the beginning. Because it's almost like it's similar to like something just falling apart on you because you're so good, and then all of a sudden you jump on the stone, and it's like, why can I not match this angle? Why can I not hold this damn angle? I'm convexing it all to hell. I got facets all across to my edge, and it's like I can't get rid of them, and it's like it almost feels like it's like, do I even know how to sharpen? Like, that's the way your brain starts working. Like, am I even good at this? And you are. It's just you've rushed ahead of yourself, and you've gotten to a point to where you're really good, and you jump to the next level, of which is not paying attention, not concentrating, not focusing, not paying attention to your elbows, your angles, the pressure, and all of that. You're not paying attention to it, and you stop. And it makes it to where now you're doing all these little movements that if you were paying attention to, you wouldn't do.
Ding, 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 ding,
ding, ding, ding.
Yep, Mick. thank you so much for the 5 bones.
Thank you.
And also, I forgot to say thanks for the 5 bones to Richard.
Yeah, but, Richard, thank you.
What kind of steel should I practice with before doing it with my more expensive knife?
Okay, well, I'll tell you one steel do not practice on.
Actually,
I'll tell you a couple steels. No, not HCR. HCR is a good steel to practice on, but don't practice on stainless steel. No name stainless. Like, of course, stainless steels you can practice on as long as they have a name. HCR, 14C28N, so on and so on. But don't practice on no-name stainless gas station knives. Do not do that. They're not heat-treated well. It's going to be a nightmare. They will be the hardest thing. I'd rather sharpen Maximent than sharpen stainless that does not have a heat, that does not heat-treated well. So my most recommended is Civivis. Civivis do a good heat treat on their budget knives. You can get their D2 14C28N is probably the most I would recommend because they're 14C. They do a really good job on it. It's an easy steel to sharpen. It gets incredibly sharp. It does good at low angles. It just does good all the way around. So that would be my most recommended. But any steel that's between like 8CR and 154CM, you'll be fine on. D2 people struggle with a little bit more. So most people wouldn't recommend doing D2. I don't have a problem recommending doing D2. Just do it at a low grit. Make sure you start with a low grit. Don't start with anything over 300 grit to learn how to sharpen on. So 300 grit or lower to start sharpening so that you can see what you're doing. You need to see with every pass exactly what you're doing. But the more aggressive the stone, the more aggressive it's going to sharpen and the faster it's going to sharpen. But it's better than using a high grit stone and you doing 30 passes and not seeing any difference in what you're doing. With a low grit, you can see exactly where you scratched. But be willing to ruin the knife you're going to sharpen. Not ruin, but ruin the edge. You can always fix it, though. So
I just have a super fast question so I can continue working.
Yes.
Look at this. Do you know anyone that's ever gotten scales from him before? Is he legit? You've been following him for a while, so I don't know if you know. If you don't know, you don't know. It's okay.
No, I haven't gotten any scales from him, but I do remember him. I just can't think of. He's in Russia, I think.
He is.
Oh, he is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, I think he's obviously he's a Russian dude. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. He seems like he's all good. Okay, so we have a burr from heel to tip, but on this side, I technically have a little portion right here that I can see my grip pattern has not gotten down to the apex, even though I have a burr on this side. So that means this side, I've gotten from the heel of the blade to the tip, from the top of the edge bevel to the apex, I've got done with my scratch pattern. But when I look at this side, I'm missing the scratch pattern at the very apex. Let me show you guys that. Hopefully you guys can see this. Maybe you guys can't. Maybe you guys can. But if you look at the middle of the knife, you can see it kind of shining back at you. See that portion shining back at you? That's because I have not hit the apex. So I need to hit it. You can also see it at the heel too. See that? That little shine back at you right there? I have not hit that. So let's hit it. Yeah, that portion right there and right there. So what I'm getting from this is that I think when they belt sharpened it, I don't know, maybe it was like really deep, like their angle got messed up and like really deep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hit you that hard. I'm so sorry. Bama said, Jared, favorite steel to sharpen and favorite knife to sharpen. Go!
14C28 on.
Oh, what a shocker.
Crewware would be next in K390.
Favorite knife, though?
K390 would probably be the next best. I love sharpening K390 and Crewware. So Crewware, K390, and
favorite knife you've sharpened?
Favorite knife to sharpen?
Well, I mean that you have sharpened, because you have to have sharpened it to know if it's your favorite, right?
Yeah. I mean, I like sharpening Spydercos. Spydercos are really nice. They're an easy blade shape to sharpen, so those are really cool. And I love sharpening the Civivi Elementum button lock. That's another good one that's really easy. It takes such a nasty sharp edge. The Picaro is another one that's really good. But Spydercos are really good. Those are my favorite. They always do such a good heat treat, so they're always great to sharpen. But the thinner behind the edge, the faster it's going to go. The thicker behind the edge, the longer it will take. If it's super thin behind the edge, man, it's a lot faster than if you, like, the difference between sharpening, say, a Spyderco and a Medford is hours. Especially if you're doing a low angle. So in this case, because this side's taking me so much work, my edge bevel is probably going to be a little bit wider, but I'll just have to match it up after. I'm going to raise my angle a little bit in order to hit this, because it's weird how it's not hitting that one portion. I'm going to also not put pressure, but I'm just going to touch that spot with a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of pressure. Not much. And when I raise the angle, like, you can barely tell I raised the angle a little bit. That's how little of a difference it should be. If you can notice a big difference, then you changed entirely way too much. Ooh, almost. Almost got it. The heel is still a little bit neglected. So to get the heel right now, what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to focus on the heel. I'm going to go right to the heel. And I'll put just a little bit of pressure. Don't put pressure, because that will literally make your angle change. When you go like this and you put pressure, what it does is it goes like that. You're literally pushing the blade back, and you will make your edge bevel huge right there. So once you got it, give me 1 second. Once you got it, touch it. That's it. No pressure, just touch it. That little bit of touch is going to give you just all the pressure you need to get to that spot. Yes.
Okay, you have a question. Jared, thoughts on sharpening more companies' knife with a similar bevel? Thanks.
Mora's knife. Don't they have Scandi grinds?
I don't know.
Okay, what was the question?
Yeah, they do. Mora knives? Yeah, they have Scandi grinds.
If his
thoughts
does.
on sharpening Mora companies or knife with similar bevel?
A Mora. Okay, yeah. So a Scandi grind.
Yeah, Scandi.
So maybe I should do it, because I gotta do like a whole thing on Scandis. You can do Scandis on sandpaper if you want. It just depends, but you're basically treating the whole edge bevel as the angle. So you just need to get a stone, and you need to match that entire angle of the bevel on the plate or whatever you're sharpening on, the stone, the plate, and you want to put that on there. And same thing doing an edge bevel like I'm doing. The only difference is you're hitting a bigger portion. So it's the same thing, same idea, same rules apply. It's just the difference is you're doing this much of the knife instead of this much of the knife. But you can also, a lot of people take and use sandpaper, and they strop on it. So that works really good too. But maybe I'll get a Scandi, and I will do an episode of Scandi grinds.
Sid says Mora is super easy to sharpen. Both their carbon steel 20, C27, etc. is super easy to sharpen.
Yeah, the steel is easy to sharpen, but we're talking about the actual bevel. Yeah. So having the motor skills and the knowledge to sharpen it is different than the steel itself. But yeah, the steel is definitely easy to sharpen. They even use 14C.
what was that one knife way back in the beginning of our channel? It was called like the Wolf or something like that, and it was a folder.
The Warwolf.
The Warwolf, and it had a Scandi grind, and it was a folder.
No Scandi grind.
No, we had a folder. That what was
you're
that?
You're talking about the cold steel
the Finwolf.
Finwolf, yeah.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Finwolf.
Yeah, that was cool.
I loved that knife. That was like one of the first knives somebody loaned us for the channel, right? It was.
No, did we own
We
one?
did not own that. Or did we?
I gave one away at one point, but...
no, so I think somebody loaned that to us really early on.
Yeah, Timbo, I think.
Was it Timbo?
I think so.
Somebody did, because we went and took it in the forest and we're cutting plants with it and stuff.
Yeah.
I liked that knife. I love the way Scandi grinds look. They just have a really nice
They're
look.
So good for outdoors.
Yeah.
They're really, really
Beautiful
good.
Look.
Thoughts on sharpening chisel ground blades? I actually did a whole sharpening episode on chisel ground blades, but they're even easier.
I was going to say, wouldn't they be the easiest of them all? Because your ankle would be so much easier to hold, only having to deal with one side of the apex.
The deal is you don't have to do the other side, but you do have to worry about cleaning the burr off, which is going to be the most important part with the chisel grind. Because so you want to work on it just like you'd work on any other edge bevel. Work on that side, sharpen the side just like we're sharpening now. And then once you have your burr from heel to tip, what you want to do is as you're going through it, don't allow your burr to get too big, because what will happen is your burr will be really big in this area, and the area that's taking the longest for you to hit is going to be the smallest. You don't want to let this burr get so massive and then this one really tiny, is when you go to strip it off, it's going to be so big it's going to tear steel with it. So what you do is you what's it called? You do a removal progression or whatever with that side. So like when that part of the edge gets too big of a burr, remove it. And then continue working on the side that the edge bevel's on. Continue sharpening. When you can feel a burr in certain areas, you can get it on a ceramic. That's how I like to do it. And just lightly pass it on a ceramic and remove it. Then as soon as you got to the point to where you're getting a burr from heel to tip consistently, then get an entire burr, a nice small burr from heel to tip, and then just barely pass it on a ceramic, or you can use a stropping progression, or you can even use your stone and just lightly, gently let it snag the burr off. You can even use a piece of wood and drag it through. We are about done with this, but I have a little bit more to heal.
Can we go see the turtles after this?
Yeah.
Baby?
Yes, I have to film that other thing, but yeah.
We can go see the turtles, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Sid said Scandies is super easy once you're done. Once you've done it a few times, just lay the whole bevel down and go at it. Also depends on if it's a true Scandi zero grind, secondary bevel, or a Scandi convex.
Yeah, I'm talking.
He said he had just gotten done sharpening 3 before he came.
I'm talking about a Scandi with a zero grind. When I'm talking about it, I'm not talking about a Scandi with an edge bevel. Scandi with an edge bevel is going to be like sharpening a regular knife. Scandi with a zero grind is where you're going to lay the entire edge bevel on the stone, just like you're going to do a regular edge bevel. Treat it like an edge bevel. The only difference is you're doing the entire thing. But yes, they're easy. It's just understanding the motions and all of the little details. All of it is easy when you know how to do it. I still remember, and I try to put myself in the place of which I don't, because I remember watching people do full sharpening videos and wondering, like, what's he doing with that hand? What's he doing with that finger? Is he putting pressure? Like, how does he know to hear that? Or, because people always talk about the sound of it and how much pressure is he putting? I just wondering so many little details. I remember one time I asked somebody what stone I should get, and I know now, like, that can be a question that takes other questions in order to answer. But I just wanted an answer. Like, just tell me a fucking answer. And the guy asked me 120 questions, and I was thinking, like, man, he's being a dick.
Wait, who?
It doesn't matter.
No, I'm saying, like, what was the situation?
I just was asking what stone should I get? I want to sharpen my knives. What stone should I get? Right? What diamond stone should I get? And the guy had 120 questions. And it's like, but that's why I try to answer mine when people ask me what stones I should get. I always say the same answer. I try to say, if you're trying to get affordable stones and you want diamond plates, get the ultra sharp diamond plates. Those are very affordable. They work really good. I always have them. I have them linked in lots of videos. But because I know when you're wanting to, when you have a question like that, you just want an answer. You don't want 120 other questions of what steel you're sharpening, how many knives do you have, like what type of blade shape is it? Are they spider goes? Or like just all these other questions. You're doing chef knives. You're doing this. You're doing that, because there are those questions. Because if you're sharpening chef knife versus high carbide steels, then yeah, you probably just want an aluminum oxide or a natural stone. But when you're doing folders with today's steel, you want diamonds. So that's why I always just recommend diamonds, because you can still do the diamonds on the other stones. Or sorry, you can still do the diamonds on the other steels. But the other steels work really good on aluminum oxide, and sometimes even better on aluminum oxide or natural stones when it's a super simple steel, like some of the chef knife steels. But you could still sharpen those steels on diamonds.
All right, see you later, Bama.
See you later, bud. Yeah, we're almost done here. We're going to do a burr removal after this. I'm just trying to get this heel, man. It will not come out. I might have to just leave this part of the heel. It's like the whole edge is done right now. It's just this little tiny piece of the heel will not come out, which is okay sometimes to just leave. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this other side really quick because my angle is not perfectly matching. And then we are just going to do a burr removal. Right now, if you notice, I'm doing a mixture between my body movement and my arms, mostly body. Just because I'm kind of rushing, which I shouldn't be rushing, but I'm trying to get more work done. So I'm doing a back and forth motion. Oh, I felt my angle go off right there. So I'm going to reset it really quick. When you feel you messed up your angle, just pick up the knife. Don't try to get it while you're still on the stone. Pick up the knife, put it back down, and we are almost done. I'm just trying to make sure I get a burr from heel to tip. Ooh, got it. Except for that little heel. So,
what's up, Knife Nut? Thanks for stopping by.
What's up, Knife Nut? All right, a little bit longer on the stone because of my edge bevel's almost perfectly matched. It's a little bit smaller on this side. So I'm just going to spend a little tiny bit more time on this side just to try to match it up a little bit better. Now, in many cases, your grind is off from one side to the other, so sometimes it's difficult to match it perfectly from one side to the other, which this one's is not that off, so it's fine. But sometimes that's the case, and you just have to do a different angle on the one side or work longer on the one side so that it removes more steel on one side than the other. It's pretty good. It's almost done. If there's any more questions, though, or anything else you guys want me to answer before we go, let me know, because we are about to do the burr removal.
Yeah, you got a ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding,
Answer
ding.
matter. Thanks for the 20 bones.
20 bones, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Since I've been watching your channel, I'm getting in good shape. I smell good, and my knives are razor sharp. Thanks for the knowledge.
Dude.
That you don't understand how happy that probably just made Jared.
Yeah, it makes me feel so good, man.
I don't know if it was sarcastic,
I put a big
but I don't
smile.
think so.
I hope it wasn't sarcastic because that puts a damn smile on my face, man. Good for you, man. I love that because, man, if I could, if it was possible for me to help a lot of the guys in the community get healthier and just better themselves, man, I would totally do that. Like, I would totally even start a channel around that because I love that. I love seeing men, better themselves and do good and try to be healthy and things like that. So good for you, man. That's amazing. So I got this Work Sharp. I could grab my ceramic rod, but this has a ceramic rod. We're going to use this. I could use this. But what we're going to do...
He said it's not sarcasm.
Good. I'm glad.
Because some people make fun of that part of...
No, they don't. They know what it is? Is that they don't have the balls. That's all it is. They don't have the balls. And don't ever listen to anybody give you shit about... Because it's just an insecurity from them because they don't have the balls to be good to themselves, right? And the better you can be to yourself, the better other people around you will be to you. So, if you want people to treat you good and be good to you, then treat yourself good. Because you can't...
Hey!
People are going to treat you how you treat yourself.
Too many friends! Welcome to the Kershaws!
Shout out to the Bang Gang squad. Thank you for joining, man. So, we're going to do a burr removal now. So, now we have 2 ceramic rods, we have the stone. So I can do it on the stone, doing a basically like a diminishing the burr. So what I would do is I would just take my angle, keep this exact same angle I already had on the plate, and just lightly. So I'm not trying to make the burr go back over to the other side. I'm just trying to get the stone to snag the burr. You can hear it. Listen. Maybe you can't. So that did make it flip over a little bit. So now I got it on both sides. So I'm going to do one more light pass on this side. Oop, right there, you can hear it hit. Then I'm going to go to this side and do a light pass on this side. Very, very lightly. Now, a lot of times, and I get a lot of these questions, why is it after I've sharpened, I use my knife a couple times, and I'm feeling like little micro bevels in my belly? The reason why is because of the way you removed your burr, your apex. You need to reveal a clean apex. If you have a little wire, you might not even realize it, but you might have a micro wire in through that part of the belly, or you might have, during your burr removal, removed metal, and it fatigued the metal at the belly area, and now when you start using the knife, it starts that starts chipping away, basically. So you want a good structure of an apex and a clean apex. So, like right now, I have the burr on both sides still. I'm going to do a couple more single passes really quick. I'm just trying to snag the burr and get it to come off without tearing it. I'm not trying to tear it off. I kind of want to fatigue it off a little bit, get it to flip back and forth a little bit till it pops off, till it breaks off. Or, if some of it does get pulled a little bit, it's okay as long as it's not just being stripped right off really fast, tearing other metal with it. Now, the bigger it is, the more you want to do a diminishing burr removal, because the bigger it is, the more likely it is to take stuff with it. So after doing that, so now I got it a lot smaller than it was. Now I'm just going to barely use the ceramic rod. And I mean, I'm not using any pressure at all. No pressure at all. I'm just letting it snag the bird. Dude, you guys can see how light I'm doing this. Like, I'm actually using less pressure than the weight of the knife. Not even close to the pressure of the weight of the knife. Still there, still there. And you can raise your angle on this one a little bit. You don't have to hit that low of an angle. It can be a high angle because you're not putting any pressure to create a micro bevel. You're only trying to snag the burr off. Barely letting the apex touch. Okay, it's almost gone. This bird's giving us a little trouble. Normally it's not this hard, but sometimes, hey, sometimes you get this. So do a couple more very light passes. I'm not going to use any pressure. Just because it's being a little tough doesn't mean I start adding pressure. It just means I take more time. Almost there. Oh, it's so close.
Too Many Trade says, what grit would you say that ceramic is about? About what grit is ceramic?
2000 grit.
2000?
So also another reason why this one's a little tougher, this is a very aggressive stone. I'm doing a very coarse edge on this. Now, if I moved up to a higher grit, this would be going a lot faster and a lot easier. It's a lot more difficult to remove 140 grit burr, which this is technically like 300 grit because it's worn down a little bit, but it's technically a 140. But a 300 grit burr, let's say it's 300 grit because this has been used a lot. A 300 grit burr is a lot more difficult to remove than a 600 grit burr. 600 grit burr is actually pretty easy to remove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some extra stropping on this one. And I always do that with my very coarse edges. Yeah, I can feel a little bit of... The whole apex feels pretty good, except for right here in the spot of the belly. And if it kept giving me too much trouble, I would just wind up moving up to another grit because this is very aggressive. I don't recommend most people sharpen their edges unless if it's like AEBL or CPM 154, then a super coarse like this. D2 does really good with coarse to medium grit. But this is obnoxiously coarse. So there's a difference between so I would recommend between 400 and 800 grit on D2. This is more like a 240 to 300 grit. So that's pretty aggressive. But we're going to take this strop over here. And we are going to, right now I have gunny juice on here. We have, I have a 6, a 1, and a, no, 6, 1 and a quarter micron. On this one, I have the quarter, and I think this one's the 1. I normally would be using my 6, but here's my 6. Okay, so here's a 6. I can use this one. So
Johnny said, so freaking tedious for me. It's like trying to understand Swahili.
Well, so it's not that tedious. If you you can go watch my step-by-step freehand sharpening. That will be the best video for you. We've been you kind of do have to watch a lot of videos and a lot of content because you want to understand a lot more. Like if you just want to know right now, if I had a knife in my hand and I want to sharpen it, watch my step-by-step freehand. It will show you step-by-step exactly how to sharpen your knife. I'm kind of jumping all over the board because I do have a lot of sharpening content, and I'm taking out some of the basics and getting into more of the finer details. The finer details are going to be for people that understand the basics. You don't want to go over the basics 1,000 times. Eventually, you want to get to some more of the more detailed information that people are wanting to know that they're having trouble with because there's so many different blade shapes. It's not like there's only one blade shape, one steel, one grind, one type of edge, one type of stone. There are thousands of kinds of stones, thousands of different grinds and blade shapes and steels, and there's just so many details that can be gone through.
Also, just so you guys know, for those of you that are members but maybe aren't super deep into the sharpening side of the knife hobby, we do have other content that's going to be planned and coming up for the members only type stuff.
Do you have
So just keep
thinner
that in
paper?
mind.
Do you have thinner paper?
I do not. All my notebooks are thick paper like that.
This is thick paper.
I'm sorry.
Go grab one of my notebooks from the bedroom.
Oh, wait,
No, I got this. Never mind.
Okay.
So, let's test this edge now. I can feel my belly does have a little bit more bite. But like we were just talking about, this is a very coarse edge. So I'm doing a reverse J. I start with the tip, drag down. So you see me, I'm dragging down. And that's in order for me to, when I'm dragging down, I'm just getting the tip backwards. And then I'm dropping my elbow. So going down, dropping my elbow because I want to be able to hit my belly. So when I'm hitting the tip, my elbow's up. So in order for me to hit the belly, I need to drop my elbow now and then start going up like that.
Which video shows basics?
You're kind of doing step-by-step freehand sharpening.
That's what the title is?
Yep. But listen, go through my sharpening playlist because there's tons of information through the whole thing. But watch the step-by-step freehand. That'll help you out a lot. But don't think that that's like the end-all be-all video. Go through it'll answer a lot of questions if you go through my my other videos. But the step-by-step, I think, will be the video you want to see. Okay, so we got some basically phone book paper. It's what is it? Smoky Mountain Knife Works magazine. Think about that, guys. Technically, that would be like 140 grit edge. It's really, like I said, like a 240 to 300. Look at how clean that is. Oop, that was my fault. Let me grab a different piece, a cleaner piece. Wonder if we can do a swirl. I think we could do a swirl with this low of a grit. First, let's do a nice clean push pass. Nice. You can hear that belly a little bit. Just a little bit more aggressive than the rest. It's not bad, though. You can hear it a little bit, though. Right there. Barely, though. I don't know if that's coming over the microphone, but it's barely. So most likely the outcome is going to be when I start using it, this belly is probably going to need a tune-up here soon. Or, like the sooner than the rest of the edge, which that's usually the part of the knife you use the most anyways. But what I would do here to fix that is I would move up grit. Right? I'd move up grit. And I'm talking about something so tiny right now that most of you wouldn't even acknowledge. I'm acknowledging it just because I guess I'm too crazy, but it'll let me do a swirl, but I'm catching a little bit. Now I'm being a dummy. I messed that one all. But anyways, yeah, you want to be critical to some extent, but you also don't want to be crazy critical as me until if you know what to do, then start being really critical. There we go. I'm just letting myself ruin that. I can do the swirls, but it's not as easy as if it was a finer grit. But I can do them. But damn it, it's a little tough. I can do it, but we'll grab one more, and we're just gonna do a clean pass. Very clean. Anyways, feels really good. I'm happy with it for a nice, coarse, aggressive edge. This is going to be the kind of edge that does require more stropping. So it's not going to be an edge that, you know, since it's so aggressive and coarse, it's the type of edge that after I use it on some cardboard and straps, once I get home or whatever I'm doing for the day, I will strop it. You should be doing that mostly anyways, but you don't want to overstrop your steels. But when you have a super, super coarse edge, you're not going to overstrop it. So there's no worries on stropping. Man, that's aggressive. Holy cow. If you guys can just see, it is just like, whew. Let me zoom in. Look at how aggressive this thing is when it touches my skin. Like it's just peeling the skin off, just touching. And it's fine enough to where I could see if we can chop this in half. You guys think it'll chop it? Oh, I messed that up. That was my fault. Let's do it again.
Wait, hold on. Hold your horses there, pal. Don't do it yet.
Why?
Thank you.
Bam! This one's small. I got it, but I couldn't. My knuckle hit. Didn't have enough room. But I got it, though. All right, guys.
Ryan Gerd says that you make his sharpening life complete.
Oh, man, that makes me feel good. Awesome. Now, make sure if you guys do put an aggressive edge on your knives, it is a knife you strop often. And if it winds up getting to the point to where you're past where stropping helps, get yourself a ceramic rod, create yourself a little micro bevel just to give you some time before a full sharpening. That way you can get the most out of your edge. That will give you, you know, after you put a micro bevel on it, it'll give you about a week more time with your edge and you can continue to use it before you will need to do a full-blown sharpening. Now, if you're crazy like me and you like your edges to be hair popping, screaming sharp almost always, then you probably won't do that. But I tend to carry the knives that I wind up having the sharpest edges on, and then, you know, factory edges. I'll carry them and use them. Don't get me wrong, I will. But a lot of them, man, they don't. They're not as sharp as I'd like, and it winds up becoming more difficult. And when you realize how sharp you can get a knife and how much better they cut and just how much easy they are to use, you tend to want that always. You know, it just makes everything so much more safer and easier and everything. But there you guys go. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being members. And thank you for all the donations from everybody who did donate. Thank you for everybody for joining. Shout out to the patron members as well. Don't forget to watch the giveaway video and comment in the video that's on YouTube.
I left a post there.
What?
I left a post for the
She left a post
on
in the patrons. Okay, guys. Love you guys. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you guys for watching.
Peace.
Peace.